Singapore is known for its gardens. We are called the Garden City after all, but aside from all the lush greenery that we see all around us, they have opted to build Gardens by the Bay. Gardens by the Bay is sited on 101-hectare reclaimed land. And what you see on screen is part of that. For those who haven't been there, bisitahin po ninyo at napakaganda. It features the different flora. Kaya po pag cherry blossom season in Japan, we can also showcase it in the Gardens by the Bay. It is Singapore's move to not being called the Garden City, but to be called a city in a garden. That is why it has been also called an architectural marvel because of its great design. It has 2 conservatories inside, the flower dome and the cloud forest, and it just showcases the different colors that flowers and leaves and plants would showcase. And every time we remember a garden, it just gives us that certain flavor, that certain sense of serenity, calmness, beauty, and cheer, right? That's why we love going to gardens. On times when we are just so stressful or just stressed, we just go out to our park and see all the greenery and the garden that abound. There are 2 gardens that are known in the Bible. The Garden of Eden, where everything started, and another garden which ushered in the end to a new beginning. We will be talking about in Matthew chapter 26, verses 36 to 46. The agony and pain that Jesus Christ went through on the last evening before his betrayal is something that needs to be talked about because it will change the way you see and view the things that has transpired during that evening. Jesus Christ, in deep anguish and pain, had to present himself to the Father through a prayer that all of us will be in wondering, why would he pray such a thing? But Matthew, Mark, and Luke was able to capture that. The anguish, the agony, and the pain at a garden known as Gethsemane. And after this conversation, it is my heart's desire that together with me you will be able to make this conclusion, that Jesus surrendered for my victory. Jesus surrendered for our victory. That in Jesus' surrender, that is when we will be able to claim, and we are able to claim the victorious life that he has prepared for us. It is in Jesus' anguish that delight and pure happiness has been given and awarded to us. So if you have your Bibles with you, please turn to Matthew chapter 26. That is where we will be reading it from, although it is present in all 3 Gospels. Allow me to set the tone before I start. It was after the Last Supper, the last dinner that he had with his friends. And at that time, Jesus, together with the closest of people that he had on earth, he was able to lay upon them the things that were going to happen in the next few days. He prophesies and tells them about his death, something that everyone on that table disagreed to. And they told him, no, that's not going to happen. But Jesus told them, I am going to suffer. And I am not only going to suffer, but I am also going to die. He also predicts there the betrayal of one of them. And everybody was asking, is that me? Is that me? And Judas stands up upon that table and he says, and Jesus acknowledges that it is him who will betray him. And then of course, upon that table, Peter was also told that he would deny Christ. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. Upon that table were revelation upon revelation. Jesus has already declared his death. Jesus has already proclaimed that I am going to die. I have to die for you. Time and again, through the stories in the Bible, we will be able to read that Jesus Christ has proclaimed his purpose of coming to earth. He has already told people one time and again that I have come to serve the will of my Father. He breathed that. He declared that. He proclaimed that. He lived with every fiber of his body that I am here on earth for one sole purpose, and that is to fulfill my Father's will. So that momentous evening, he brings his disciples, where else? To their favorite tambayan. And where is that? We read in verse 36 that Jesus went with them. Who is the them? All of the disciples left, aside from Judas. Because si Judas umalis na nga, di ba? To go about his business. So all the disciples were with him. And where did they go? To an olive grove. More known as the Mount of Olives, the Garden of Gethsemane is more of an orchard rather than a garden, because it is where olive trees abound. It is called Gethsemane because it is known for its olive press. But for this tantamount evening, it will be known more for its olive trees, because it will be known for where Christ would suffer in agony. He goes with all 11, but 8 of them he left somewhere at the foot of the hill, of the mountain. And then they go further with 3 of his best buddies, Peter, James, and John. He took Peter, Zebedee's 2 sons, James and John, and he tells them, sit here while I go over there and pray. That's not anything new. Jesus would always go to this place with them in prayer. Especially so, in major ministry events of Christ, we would take note that Jesus would always commune with his Father, right? Time and time again, we read that Jesus would go in solitude to pray. So this is nothing new. Gethsemane was something that Jesus went to a lot of times. So he was not hiding. If you will read the Last Supper, the Last Supper's venue was sort of unknown. It was not obvious where it was. We can just surmise that it was done in one of his friends' house. But here, it was made obvious. The after-party venue was known. And Judas, the betrayer, the first place that he would think of that Jesus would go to after a meal would be going to the Garden of Gethsemane. After that, he became anguished and distressed. And he told them, take note of this, my soul is crushed with grief to the point of death. Have you ever felt that way? Na sa sobrang lungkot, sa sobrang sakit na pinagdadaanan mo, it is like you're at the brink of death. Jesus was not dead yet, but he was tantamount to dying because of the anguish and the deep distress that he was feeling. He was in so much pain that even at that point in time, the description says that he was already at that point of death. The mood of Jesus Christ at this time is that the cross is already there. I am about to go there. His ministry for 3.5 years was about to crescendo to reach its highest peak on the Mount of Golgotha, where that mountain speaks of the cross where he was going to be crucified. The anguish and pain that Jesus was going through was not to be minimized. Hindi po siya pwedeng tawaran. There is no emotion, I think, deep enough to be able to warrant such an expression of deep grief and anguish that you can feel your soul crushed. I don't know with you, mga kapatid, but I remember when I broke up in a relationship, you could literally feel the pain in your heart. It is literal that the pain in your heart is something that you really feel. And that was what Jesus was saying. That was what Jesus was feeling. Deep sorrow, deep agony. I don't know what else or how more to describe it. But the sorrow that Jesus was feeling was so much that he's saying that my soul is crushed with grief to the point of death. You may ask, teka muna, Diyos siya. He's God. Why in the world is he going to feel such distress? He knows what's going to happen. He's not supposed to be feeling this way. After all, he is God. But Jesus at this point in time is human Jesus expressing his emotions to his disciples. Never in his stay in the world did he ever express such anguish. Did he ever express such turmoil? Did you ever read any time? You remember when in the storm in Galilee? When everybody in the boat were all feeling distressed and scared and worried, what did he do? When they woke up Jesus, what did he do? He just stood up, raised out his hand, and calmly said, peace. Chill. Diba? Cool. That was who he was. Right? When he faced Satan at his fasting moment, before his ministry, Satan was taunting him, telling him, give this up, give this to me. O Jesus, pandesal, oh. Ang sabi ni Jesus, he was so calm, cool, unruffled. He was not bothered at all, and he just said, man does not live by bread alone. Diba? Cool, calm. That's how we knew Jesus to be. But at this point in time, declaring even to his disciples that my soul is crushed. I am in deep pain. I am in deep agony. That was human Jesus. That was the man Jesus expressing to one and all, I am in grief to the point of death. And what does he say to his friends? Stay here and keep watch. We like that, right? When we're having problems, when we're having all of these things, all of these issues in life, we want our friends to be there. Napagalitan ka ni boss, or you're fired, call a friend. Napagalitan ka ng amo, call a friend. Tung amo ko talaga, oh. When you're in deep distress, you look and call for someone na makakadamay. Someone who you'll be able to express yourself to. And that was what Jesus was saying here. You don't ask a friend to just watch over you for nothing. Jesus knew that there was something that was looming behind him. And that's why he asked his friends. By this time, his friends would have known na kailangan bantayan natin si Jesus. That would have been their emotions at this time. Right? But as we read on, we read that Jesus leaves the three of them. A stone's throw away, he moves farther. And what was the emotion that Jesus had here? His face to the ground. Jesus lay prostrate on the ground. He did not only put his knees on the floor, but he placed his whole being, his face on the ground. And he started praying, my Father. In other versions, it says, Abba, Father. If it is possible to let this cup of suffering to be taken away from me. When Christ said, Father, if it is possible, in other versions it says, everything is possible with you, God. Everything is possible with you, Father. And when Jesus said that, there is no question in his mind that everything is possible with God. Di ba tayo when we pray, Lord, baka naman pwede. Meron tayong baka. Or Lord, I know this is possible for you. But at the back of our mind, we know that there's still a question mark. Right? We still doubt. There's still that question, kaya talaga ni Lord? Ibibigay talaga kaya sa akin? Will God give this to me? Will God grant my prayer? But here Jesus, in full declaration, was saying, everything is possible with you, Lord. Jesus was so in tune with the Father, he knew who the Father was, and he knew that anything and everything was possible with God. So alam niya, ibibigay ni God to. God will grant this to me. Why? Because I am asking for it. If it's just because of possibilities, if it's just because of probabilities, God will grant it. It's pretty much like parents, right? For new moms, for new dads, you'll do everything possible. Kahit walang tulog, when your baby cries, you're there. Even us as earthly parents would give everything and anything possible. Basta't pwede, basta't kaya. Minsan nga kahit hindi kaya, di ba? Up to the last centavo. That is how sure Jesus was as far as asking the Father for something. Jesus was saying, Father, I know everything is possible with you. So this is Jesus' request. Let this cup of suffering be taken away from me. Huh? But wait. Didn't Jesus know that he was going to suffer? Didn't Jesus know that that was the purpose for his coming? Didn't Jesus know that he was going to not only be crucified on the cross, but there was going to be a 3-day ordeal that he needed to pass through? Jesus knew that. He was God after all. Then how come he's now here asking, Father, if it is possible, let this cup of suffering be taken away from me? Jesus wanted a way out. Jesus wanted to bail out. Jesus wanted mission abort. Is this what he's saying? Jesus wanted a way out of the purpose and the will of the Father. But there's a second part to the prayer. It doesn't end there. And he says, yet I want your will to be done. Father, if it is possible, take this away from me, but not mine, not my request, not my will, but yours be done. Even at this moment of anguish, Jesus had his sights in tune with the Father. Not my will, Lord, but yours. Ito po ang gusto ko. This is what I want. This is what I request. Jesus was not asking for mission abort. Jesus was not asking for a way out. He was asking for, baka naman, Lord, may ibang paraan. Is there any other way that we can go through so that I will be able to give your children, my brethren, the way out of their out of the punishment of their sinfulness? That was what Jesus was asking. Jesus was telling God, can we review? Can we lay out the plan? Baka naman po there's a path behind. Baka there's another route that we can take. Is there another path, Lord, that I can take? Just so I will not take this cup of suffering. Because Jesus was not only going to suffer physically, he knew that. It was a spiritual battle that he was going to face, because he was not only going to bear one person's sin, two persons' sin, it was going to be the sin of the whole world. That was what he was going to bear upon him. And that was the anguish that he was feeling. More than carrying a 2-ton, 5-ton, 1-ton cross, that was beside the point. It was the pain of man's sinfulness. That every time we fall, every time we sin, it is his anguish that is placed upon him. Yun po yung kanyang ikinalulungkot. It is not the crowning of thorns. It is not the flagging at the back. It is not that. But it is your sin and it is my sin that he was going to carry that was bothering him. That's why he asks the Father, Father, if it is possible, take this cup of suffering from me, but not my will, but yours be done. Because Jesus knew that in his surrender, that is when we will be able to get our victory. In spite of the fact that he was going to suffer, he knew in his heart of hearts that when he surrenders, that is when our victory will be claimed. And it goes on. Then, after an hour of prayer, 1 hour of prayer, can you imagine? 1 hour siyang nag-anguish doon. He was asking the Father for a full hour. Tayo nga yung 7 minutes na devotion, di pa natin magawa. But 1 hour he was battling with the Lord, laying his case, negotiating with the Father. And then after that, he goes to the disciples and finds them asleep. Diba? So he asks Peter, couldn't you watch with me even for an hour? For 1 hour he was in pain and anguish, and he sees his friends calmly sleeping, all laying there. And then what did he say? Keep watch and pray. He repeats his request to them. Keep watch and pray. Okay, Lord, I can imagine. Sorry, Lord. Okay, we will pray. So that you will not give in to temptation. Lord, inantok lang naman kami. Nasaan yung temptation doon? How many of us, when we are in deep distress, when we have so many problems, cannot sleep? Can I have a show of hands? Wala. Sarap niyo naman. Because there's another part of that. Kasi ako po, hindi ako nakakatulog eh. Kaya may problema, kaya wala. Hindi ako nakakatulog. There are those people who sleeps through stress. And I searched it. It is a medical condition. It is medically explained. It is learned helplessness. That when you feel so helpless, that you feel so stressed, I actually have a friend who's like that. Alam mo yan, pagka may problema, alam mo yan if he's carrying so many things, because you know when you call him, how's he or how's she, and he goes, tulog. So you know that she's going through so much stress because she's always asleep. That's how they cope. And that was what was happening to the disciples. They were in so much agony. They were so much worried about what Christ was going through that they were falling asleep. In the next verse, you will read that they couldn't keep their eyes open. Because after all, I'm sure this was way late in the evening. The atmosphere was just so good for sleeping. There's a sweet breeze. The sky was so clear. There are stars up above. And here you are, dozing off. Kahit siguro lagyan ng toothpick yung mata, magsasara pa rin. Diba? But Jesus warns them, keep watch and pray so that you will not give in to temptation. For the spirit is willing, but the body is weak. Jesus was also warning them. He was already giving them the scenario. When I get caught this evening, when my betrayer comes, and in the next few days and in the next few months, even if you want to follow me as you have declared to, you will have a problem. Because your spirit is willing to follow me, the temptation will be so strong to give me up, because Peter was already going to deny him after this. There are so many temptations. You will give me up. You will give up your faith. There are so many things that's going to happen. Contrary to what Christ was doing, that before he was facing a great tragedy, a great event in his life, he was there in prayer. Here were the disciples sleeping it through. How can you be watchful and prayerful if you're asleep? Buhay lang po ang nakakapagdasal. Kaya habang buhay tayo, we should be in prayer. And that was what Jesus was warning them. And after that, Jesus left them a second time and prayed. And take note of his prayer this time. He goes back again in solitude, and this is what his prayer said. My Father, Abba Father. Kanina, di ba sabi niya, if it is possible for you to take this cup away from me, look at the change of what happened after that hour of deep prayer. My Father, if this cup cannot be taken away unless I drink it. Jesus was now starting to surrender his will. Jesus was now giving up. Jesus was now surrendering to his Father. If this cup cannot be taken unless I drink it, yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. In surrender, your will be done. Jesus surrendered his life. Jesus surrendered every faculty of his being so that you and I will be able to claim that victory in heaven someday. Jesus surrendered so that we will have that victory. And then he returned to his disciples once more. And again, he found them sleeping because they couldn't keep their eyes open. No matter how stressful the situation was. In Luke, you will read that when they saw Jesus, Jesus was dropping sweat of blood. And it's a medical condition. It's true that when you're in deep distress, your capillaries break, that blood comes out. His sweat was blood. That was how in deep anguish he was. So that's why when he returned to them and saw them sleeping, I can imagine the deep distress that Christ even went through. Di ba tayo, binili natin sa kaibigan natin, lahat ng ipon natin, itabi mo, i-invest mo. I can imagine Christ was feeling the same way, being abandoned at that point in time. So seeing them, he told them again, keep watch and pray. Pray, pray. So he went again for a third time. Ang kulit, di ba? Jesus was on the negotiating table with Christ again, with God again, with his Father, and saying the same things again. I am sure this time, if his prayer has developed from, if it is your will, to Lord, if you cannot, on the third time he prays the same thing. And this time in full surrender. Because after that, he goes to his disciples and tells them, o sige, matulog na nga kayo. Go to sleep. Because there was no more to watch for, because Jesus has already surrendered. Okay, Father, your will be done. I am giving up my life for your people so that they may claim victory over sin and death. Go ahead, sleep, and have your rest. But after that, we know. But look, the time has come. The Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Up, let's be going. Look, my betrayer is here. Jesus knew Judas. He saw Judas. He saw Judas coming. And instead of running away, di ba? Pagka sa probinsyano, pag dumating na yung kalaban, anong gagawin nila? Magtatago sila, di ba? But Jesus didn't do that. He didn't run away. He did not even hide. He welcomed his betrayer. That was the progression of the prayer that Jesus had. When he surrendered, he did not hide even from the person who was going to betray him. But instead, he said, look, my betrayer is coming. And he welcomed him and came before him. Look what Philip Yancey, in his book Unanswered Prayers, had this to say. When Jesus prayed to the one who could not save him from death, he did not get his salvation. 3 times Jesus prayed and God remained silent. 3 times he pleaded to the Father, in whom everything was possible, but he did not get his answer. He did not get saved from that situation. Why? Because he instead got the salvation of the world. The purpose by which he was brought to earth, the purpose and the will of the Father was served. Because if there was any other way, then Jesus' death would have been unwarranted. If there was any other way, then Jesus' suffering would not have been given. But Jesus knew that he was going to suffer and he was going to die on the cross so that he may be able to give our victory. So what do we do now? Are you willing to say, not my will, but yours be done? The cup of suffering was there. Have you ever prayed a prayer when you knew that the answer was no? Was there ever a prayer that you have done, that you have placed upon the negotiating table of God, and you knew that the answer was a no? Are you willing to say, not my will, but yours be done? You know what happened to Christ after he surrendered to the will of the Father? At that point in time, he was given with all the strength that he needed to face the suffering that he was about to take. At that point in time, when Jesus said, not my will, Lord, but yours be done, the perfect will of the Father for the salvation of the world was served. When we submit to the Father's will, we will serve His purpose for which we are created, not ours. And it will take a lot of faith and grace and mercy for us to be able to step into that place where we will be able to say, not my will, but yours be done. But Jesus was able to serve it because He knew that the perfect will of the Father was His purpose in life. You want to have meaning in your life? You want to live the purpose by which you were born? You want to live the call that the Lord has given you? Say with Jesus, say with us now, not my will, but yours be done. Only in complete surrender can we do this, because Jesus surrendered for my victory. Can we all declare that? Jesus surrendered for my victory. Are you living a victorious life? Because Jesus had to surrender His life for our victory. So we should be living victorious lives, but we're not. Right? We're not. Because we cannot declare, Lord, not my will, but yours be done. It is only in complete surrender, as Jesus did, can we claim our victory. Let that be the prayer of your heart. Because it is only in complete surrender when we say, Lord, not my will, Lord, but yours be done. You want to be the wife that the Lord called you to be? Not my will, Lord, but yours be done. You want to be that engineer, that architect, that pilot that the Lord called you to be? You want to be that missionary that the Lord called you to be? Only in complete surrender. Not my will, Lord, but yours be done.